Welcome to the Woo and Science podcast. Today, we're going to be bringing a special guest in to talk to us and get into a good conversation about mind, body, and what that means. We'll dive more in a second.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to bring someone else into the podcast this week. Dr. Melissa Carrick is joining us. And I'll give a quick intro for those of you guys who haven't seen us. This is my wife, Dr. Meg, and Dr. Mike. We have kind of a weird practice in Jacksonville where we do a little bit of science and a little bit of woo or weird stuff. Missy, or Dr. Melissa Carrick, is a great translator between the two of us. And because she brings the science to all of those weird, messy, emotional things, right? There is some science to the emotion, believe it or not. But, we wanted to, with some of the guests that we're going to do over the next few weeks or the next few podcasts, we wanted to let you guys in on some of the conversations we have outside of the office, right? So when we get together with docs, we do a lot of seminars and different things, and I think all doctors do. And it's interesting, some of the conversations that come up and how pertinent I think it really is for our clientele, our patients, and our followers and things like that. I think the conversation particular that we had with Missy about this idea of the mind-body connection. And, we were talking about, what is really this mind-body thing? Because mind-body seems to be a little bit of everything. I mean, there's mind-body cheese, there's mind-body bath spray, there's, mind-body just about anything anymore.
Super trendy.
Yeah, it's a bit trendy. Like a lot of things, we get trendy. Like, don't get me started on the nicotine patch thing. We'll go for days on that too. But this was one that I really wanted to clarify because, Missy, you had said some great points about just this mind body is everywhere, but what does it really mean and how do we integrate it into things? So jump in wherever and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic I'm super, super passionate about because it's actually part of my journey of how I got into doing what I do, which is chiropractic and NET, as well as One Research Foundation stuff. So the idea of mind body, you're right, it's everywhere. But looking at what does it mean? And I think that especially what the three of us do with NET, we're poised in many ways to be the experts on it. When I look at mind body, I mean, I'll just jump right in. When I really think about that, it's like the physiology is the bridge between mind body. So the physiology is the bridge between mind body. And when I say bridge, it's not from A to B or B or 1 to 2. It's not these 2 points. It's really more about the infusion or the interconnectedness of the mind and the body. And it's super critical, I think, to understand where we come from with the idea of the Cartesian split. So, do you want me to just say a little bit about Descartes?
I love nerdy words. Yeah, keep going.
All right.
I said Cartesian and I got all
the Cartesian. Sorry, guys, some heart paths there. So Cartesian split, right? We have Descartes. And Descartes, it's so interesting what people don't know about Descartes, right? He was a cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. And he's credited with what some may call the Cartesian error, which is like the mind and body are total separate entities. And with the mind, we can rule the body, which I think happens in a lot of more popular self-help type stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's an interesting model of, with the mind, I can rule the body. And we have a history, even within, if you look through like Christianity or traditional cultures, there's this thought that you can rule the body with the mind. Okay, monks can slow their breath rate. And while that's true, I don't think that that's like the separation. That's actually the union. It's also interesting. Well, a couple things a bit cool about Descartes, which I don't know if you guys know this, but Descartes actually was really known for was really into his mathematics and physics.
Yeah.
And Newton basically took it over and sort of like took it and ran with it. So Descartes would be super surprised that he is known for this Cartesian split. And really, he made a deal with the church when he was looking at cadavers and said, like, okay, well, you look at cadavers, but keep it over here and don't bring any of the woo into it. We don't want to blend those things. I know it's sort of mind, body, spirit, which is also the other buzzword. So that's partly how that gets started. I also look at the overlay of the translation, right, of it actually, again, comes from like our long history in terms of Christianity influencing kind of popular thought, but way back, the translation of sarx and soma. So when they were translating scripture from Greek into Latin, it was like, some monk making this error of plugging in those two words. And sarx meant that which is earthly and fleshy, and therefore that which is like bad or basically causes our sinful nature, and soma, which is just of the body and actually had more of a divine connotation, that the body was actually like this thing that was infused and that was integrated. So we've taken a couple of cultural things, there's I think a bunch more contributors, to arrive at mind body where we are now, that are separate. And the cool thing is it seems like it's coming back now, in terms of those two things are being united across the board, of mind body. And really, I wish we had a separate language of body mind, or mind body, as Candace Pert and others have said. But it's still, I think, parsed out in mind body, and we forget that it's actually happening as an integrated whole. That's
It
why
is.
5 cents starting.
I love that. So you totally just got me fired up thinking about, like, with that whole mind body connection, one of the big pieces that and this is why I'm so passionate about NET, is how, releasing those negative traumas, those, thoughts that are keeping those emotions active in the body. I've done a lot of work with Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations and his stuff. And it really hit me when he talked about how people will sit there and do affirmations, right? And they're just sitting there telling themselves that, I'm happy and I'm abundant and all these things, but then they're feeling all this lack inside their body, and they're feeling all this despair and sadness. And it's like the two aren't lining up and working together. We're trying to get that, that motion that, okay, I feel happiness and I'm grateful and I want all these wonderful things, but it's like something's standing in the way, and becomes those kinds of blocks that are keeping us from being able to actually have that. Yes, the mind and body work together, but if they're not congruent, if we're not on the same page, if there's things standing in the way, then we need to work through that. We need to figure out what is that, so that we can have that pattern of, thinking great thoughts, but able to attract that, gratitude and feeling joy and feeling peace and all the positive things that I feel like most people are doing the mind body work because they want to feel this, but they're struggling in those ways.
Well, and that's why I always get yelled at, right? My mantra is plan for the worst, hope for the best, and plan for the worst. Right? See, she always does that to me when I say that. But if I'm ready for all the exit strategies, then I know what's coming,
But
right?
you're calling that in.
I get it.
Yeah.
Tying that physiology into it, like you started with, the physiology of the emotion. If you feel the physiology of all the negative that can come, you're going to pull that in. It's kind of like, Kevin often talks about this too at the seminars, is if you buy a car, you didn't realize that everyone else owned that car until you bought it and you were driving it around. Because now that you've looked at that car or bought that car, you realize everyone in the world has an F-150. So it's more of whatever you put out, you're going to see, and whatever your energy is thinking about or focusing your thoughts and your emotions on is going to be what you see in the world. And so you're going to see more ways to get more of that, as opposed to getting more of the things you want. I know I'm guilty of it.
You're working on it.
Hey,
No, this is awesome, because also you're talking about, like, I mean, that sounds a little woo, because we all know that it's it's the RAS that does that.
Yeah, the reticular activating system
yeah.
is what lights up your brainstem. And that's where Joe was if you're just thinking thoughts, it never makes it past the brainstem.
Yeah.
So there's never that integration in there.
Which is an interesting thing, because I think it's great for us all to focus on the positive and think about those positive thoughts. And again, this is not to be critical of, other techniques or ways of being. Like, we all need to generate it, but it's really, if we're truly trying to change a pattern. Or there's a woman that I follow, and she talks about, right, we have like a 6%, and this 6% of what our system is set at, of what we think is possible, then we're going to be at the bottom of that 6%, or we're going to be at the top. But we really want to move beyond that 6% and really continue to expand our consciousness, expand our life, to continue to grow, continue to evolve. It's like, you can't actually change that through just using the mind and, like, okay, I'm going to say it over and over and over, because where the issue, we'll say, or where the limited thinking, or where that 6% is, it's not located in the sort of neocortical or the conscious brain.
Yep.
It's been programmed as a survival mechanism.
Yep.
or something that you just kind of learned patterning in a whole other part of the brain. And so that's why it's like, oh, wait, let's actually engage the physiology. And as you said, Meg, it's sort of like pulling out the roots of the weeds rather than just pulling out the weeds or, God forbid, spraying something on them. Or it's like if you're trying to just layer the positive beliefs when you haven't pulled out those roots, it's sort of like, putting paint on something that is actually decaying.
Mm-hmm.
And then the paint's going to crack pretty soon. And you don't have a real richness or a depth to what's actually what you're trying to, grow in your life.
I love that word depth. That's so powerful, that depth. Absolutely.
Well, and that's where the neurological understanding of this really comes in, right? And this is something that's more prevalent in neuroscience today is moving into what's called this triple network theory. And I know NET, we talk on this a little bit and we touch into this a little bit, right? So if you've got your default mode network, which is essentially who you are, and then there's another network on top of that, or that integrates in with that, called the salience network, which is what's important to you. And then there's the cognitive network, which is what you think or what you know, what you read in a book. So where we really need to work on this mind-body connection is integrating, first of all, those three networks, right? The default mode network is kind of it's the screensaver that runs in the background when your computer, when you're not actively typing something in or searching, it's the screensaver that runs in the background. It's when Netflix comes up and says, "Are you still watching?" Right? That's the default mode network. I guess the RAS is when Netflix says, "Are you still watching?" Like, pay attention to me. But it starts to activate that. But when you're just doing affirmations or just doing maybe talk therapy and not working on the physiology, like what's important to you, who I am, but then also bridging that third piece of the cognition and what am I doing, then we don't make long-term changes in the physiology. We don't create neuroplastic change in our thought patterns or rewire the way that our brain's working. And I think this is exactly like what we were talking about. And this was, Meaghan often describes it as the lightning bolt went through her when you said this term
Yes.
about precision mind body,
That's
and
so
really
good.
where this conversation went while we were chatting at NET. And it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because we can just do like tapping, which is mind body. Yes, your mind is paying attention to your body because you're tapping on specific spots. But this idea of actually going and finding the physiology that's aberrant and that's not functioning well. And this is where, guys, this is where I can actually branch into the emotional side a little bit, because as much as emotions are messy and I don't want to deal with them, and just stuff them down further, and that's the best way to deal with it, right?
You've had such great realizations though with some of that, right?
I'm trying to get there.
Yeah.
This idea of precision mind body and going and finding it is not necessarily finding the emotion, but it's finding the physiology that it's altering in the body. And that was what I thought was key in what we were talking about was, and I've heard Dr. Walker say this, or Dr. Deb say it about Dr. Walker, is he didn't want to do any of that touchy-feely stuff either. He just wanted to change the physiology on it. And that part I see and I can get behind. But, this idea of going and finding it specifically and how that actually works, I think was what was huge about the conversation that we were having.
Yeah.
Yes. And I do want to give credit. I believe that was Dr. Peter Bablis in a write-up that he had about NET was using it as like precision mind body. But same thing. It was so like, yes, this is what we do.
That's it.
How many times have you had a patient? Again, it's not knocking traditional therapy. I do believe there's a place for it. And it's like, how many times have you had that patient or that client, if you're a therapist, like who is like, oh, I've done 20 years of doc, or I've done 20 years of therapy. I never would have gotten this. Or doc, whoa, this would have taken me 3 years of therapy to figure out that it was when I was this 8-year-old. That makes so much sense. Like I get it, or I feel it. And it's like the precision of just lasering in, or almost like the most finest tuned laparoscopic surgery, like right to it. It's such a phenomenal experience. And Mike, I love that you're highlighting the physiology aspect of it, because it's not pulling out the thought that's not working. It's pulling out the physiology that is aberrant, that's connected to the thought. It's pulling out the physiology that's aberrant, that's connected to the Pavlovian bell that rings. And who the hell knows what's going to ring? Sorry for the cussing. Who's going to, like what rings the bell? So it could be something totally like, why did that all of a sudden trip the wire in your physiology that then all of a sudden makes you go from totally radiant to like, what am I doing? I can't do this. What's happening? Or whatever that experience is for that human or for ourselves.
You
Well,
can't feel this through the camera, but Meg's literally vibrating as we're talking. She's like, "Oh my God, yes, yes."
that's
yes.
it. How many times have we had patients? Like I have this happen at least once or twice a week where the patient doesn't even remember what happened as we're doing it. We muscle test to, at a certain age, 9 years old, what was happening. And it's like black screen. I don't know, but why am I crying? Like, I'm so upset right now. Yes, because your brain maybe doesn't give you that conscious memory, but that unconscious mind remembers what happened and it's eliciting that physiology in the body. So let's breathe through it. Let's let that go. But how many times do you have that happen and then people start realizing that now I feel better. I feel lighter. It was like the mind did connect with the body in that and release something that's been blocking me that I never could have consciously worked through on my own because I didn't even remember that was the thing in my body.
Well, and
So
then the whole point too of that is feeling lighter. It's literally changing the way that the physiology now responds and moves through life. So they're
yes.
walking through a person literally with a different brain. I mean, we know NET changes the structure and the function of the brain
Yep.
and therefore the cascade of physiology. So walking through the world, they now are engaging the world in a totally different way. It's as if, I mean, we might even argue that they are a whole different person or in the process of changing or evolving as a person, maybe more balanced physiology for sure.
Mhm.
Well, when you create the neuroplastic change, I can get nerdy for a second. You
Yeah,
actually are a
get there,
different person.
baby.
When you make those changes, we know that you activate different pathways of C-FOS and C-Jun,
Mm,
and your cells actually change the proteins that they're creating. So
mm,
you are making new synaptic connections, and in a sense, they actually physiologically, but also neuroanatomically, are a different person. You're
yeah.
seeing the world differently. We all come into the world with a lens. When I teach, I often say everyone in the room is going to take something different out of this because everyone in the room came from somewhere else,
Yeah.
either physically or emotionally, mentally. We all have our baggage that we bring with us to a situation. And that's really where I thought is that the precision part of this came in
Mm,
is if your baggage is Louis Vuitton or it's, all years, it's still baggage, but we can specifically using the key to unlock that luggage, we can open that up and really kind of go through that.
mm,
And so you can get specifically into whatever that physiology is or that physiological change, and you are creating a new person. We've had a lot of people, I forget who it was this week that it was a parent of one of we're seeing mom and son both, and they have an interesting dynamic. And she said, he's still struggling with some things, but I know we'll get there. But I notice I'm not responding to him the same way that I was.
mm,
And so the NET that she's doing is differing that connection between the two. And even though he's still a struggle and we haven't broken through some of those things, she realizes she's not responding and it's not fueling it and it's not getting as big as it was, right?
mhm.
So for her, it's that lens for her has changed. She can see the world through his eyes a little different or in a little different way. And so that filter's been applied to change how she's reacting to her environment and the world around her.
It's
Huge.
amazing. Yeah,
Such
huge,
awesome stuff. It's
huge.
just that precision though, like you said, you can get to it so quickly for people that haven't, done NET, haven't looked into neuro emotional technique. It's not therapy. So it can get so specific and get to things so quick to clear out. And it's amazing how powerful of changes that you feel in that whole mind body, like the whole connection, everything all together. It's just my
Yeah,
favorite thing in the world.
which is pretty amazing. I mean, and I don't know how much you guys talk about cases. Like Mike, you just shared a story. Can I share a story recently that
Please.
Please.
is
Yeah.
this? So you're and this is so. I mean, we all have a lot of like different things that happen with NET where you're like, what? My mind is just blown, even though you've seen the miracles over and over again. So this it's an example of like the physiology shifting. So it's not just the patient awareness, but literally the physiology and how body parts work. So I have a patient who's been with me for quite some time. She's about 65, and it's been really challenging for her to have sexual intimacy.
Mhm.
And she's been married for 37 years. And she came in, she was like, Doc, you've got to do something. I am ready to divorce my husband. I hate him. I can't stand how he smells, blah, blah, like all this stuff going on. And I'm like, okay, okay. She's like, we've got to do something. what can we do? And I'm like, wait, all right, are you exaggerating? And she's like, no, I've been calling attorneys.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
And yeah, so I was like, okay, all right, this is not her being dramatic. Like, we got to do something here. Like, well, we could do, couples. We can do basically, right, work with the physiology of the couple doing a space clearing. So for
yeah.
those of you that don't know, that's when basically you'd have the one partner stand one place, the other partner stands and walks towards the other partner, and you do NET along the way. The NET is done privately with person A over here, because it's not really about their partner
Mhm.
that's walking closer to them. It's about how the partner rings the Pavlovian bell in their physiology, what
Oh,
goes off. So say, okay, well, listen, your husband is not a patient, but you've been doing NET for a while. Like, let's have him come in. We'll also work with him. Like, just make sure that he watches the stress documentary. We want him educated. She's like, he loves it. I talk about NET all the time, as they do, right? So we do NET, and we do NET on him. This was right before we were all together at Success at the seminar. So I come back Monday. She's my first patient. And I walk in the room, and she gets up and grabs my shoulders and goes, "What did you do? What did you do?"
oh,
I don't know. Hopefully it was good. Like, oh, because she's not looking at me like it's good. So this woman is 65. Her husband, by the way, is 75.
Oh, wow.
She's like, I had sex 9 days in a row. She'd had sex twice in 2 years prior to this, by the way. I had sex 9 days in a row. 2 of those days I had sex twice.
oh,
And I'm like, okay, okay. So the physiology clearly changed in a number of ways, including the lady bits, because that was part of what was going on with her. And she'd had a number of other issues. So having sex twice in 10 years. And then from that, all of a sudden, she's going, oh my gosh. And we're giggling, we're laughing. We sit on the couch together. I even like how he smells, Dr. Carrick. Like,
oh.
I don't know. It's like this amazing transformation. By the way, I've seen her, and he's like, hey, you know, make sure I'm going to stop at the market because we're going to have crab cakes tonight. She's like, what? What's our anniversary of 30 days of having sex at least once a day?
Oh, wow.
I
That's so
mean,
awesome.
how awesome and crazy is that? And from a functional, like a physiological perspective, it's not the mindset, it's not the reactivity. I mean, there's been other things along the way where she said, hey, um, oh, I'm not as reactive. He came to me and said, blah, blah, blah. And I responded fine. But literally, the lady bits are responding differently.
Yep.
And we all see that. So it's not to dismiss, like when a patient can say, oh, I notice I'm not as reactive, but it's like, holy cow, we see the sheer physicality in that,
Yep.
or the sheer physiological function. So that was pretty awesome.
I love that you bring that up, because after the last research call that us practitioners had, discussing about the pelvic pain that patients that went and did the study,
Yes.
it's so huge to people don't realize. And that's where I feel like the concept around, I'm alone in this. Nobody understands what I'm going through. I'm the only one that deals with this. Being able to, communicate that to people that, you're not. And there's lots of other people out there that are struggling, and having techniques like this that get to the precision of the problem.
Yes.
Like in that conversation, there were so many other things that these poor women had done. And now that they're actually able to enjoy their partner more and have intimacy, and they're not in that chronic pain, because you're able to let go of some of the stress that the body is holding on to. I mean, yes, like you said before you told your story, there's never enough stories. There's always like the
Exactly.
mind blown sitting in your room crying with your patient because you're so happy that they got to a place that they never thought they could get back to again.
Yes.
It's that precision, getting to what is, the root that's creating this imbalance, and how do we fix that? And it's amazing, amazing stuff.
And
And,
truly,
go ahead, Doc.
well, and truly, it's like being clear that we're working with the physiology of the human. So even though like this couple, it's like, I'm not working as a therapist, and I'm very clear, like, hey, we're working with the physiology. And I know a number of, we'll say, mind body practitioners, NET practitioners, that will identify themselves that way and say, hey, like I'm not a therapist. There's a great place for therapists. Do I refer to therapists? Yes, I do.
Absolutely.
And we are working to chill out the physiology. And with this woman in that story, she wasn't there because she was like, I can't. I mean, she had a whole bunch of other things that we were working on. That was in some ways a casualty of her physiology, was the inability to have sex. There wasn't pelvic pain even with it, even though it was right when that study came out, which was wild. And the precision part of it, we cleared one NEC with her husband. So we treated her, and then it was like the next day we treated her husband. She was like, "Well, it feels a little better. I don't want to kill him anymore. I don't want to divorce him anymore." But we treated one NEC
Maybe
with
we need to do that for you.
him.
That's so
Anyway,
awesome though, how
yeah,
that relationship was able to be saved. I mean, how many people go to that, understandable, there's going to be things that trigger you. And if it's your spouse or it's your kid or it's your boss or it's whatever, is there something that you could be releasing and be able to be more in balance with that relationship?
yeah.
There's something clearly triggering you.
Where your physiology isn't activated in
Yes.
that state that is going, no, 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 even though the no, no, no has nothing to do with the person sitting in front of you or the situation or whatever that is.
Yeah, and that's where I was just gonna kinda to
Mm,
put all of this in a bow,
please.
is that's what we're doing, like, with the precision mind body, and whether you're activating prefrontal or cerebellum, and, we could nerd out on the research behind NET and the amygdala and the hijacking and all of that. The importance really behind the mind body and being specific with it, right, is finding where the physiological changes are and what it's affecting physiologically. Tapping is a great way in a moment to get rid of some things.
Hmm.
Movement is another really good way to activate the cerebellum, which then drives into prefrontal, which then has better limbocortical control and all of those things, right, that we've said in the past. But knowing where the thorn is and being able to pull that out, right, that's where the precision comes in, is changing that program that's running in the background subconsciously,
Hmm.
right? It's important to go in and get that and find that. And that to me, and you said it off the top, and we'll kind of just wrap with it too. That to me is where the mind body thing really comes in, is your physiology is what's telling you there's a disconnection between your mind, or what you think, who you are, where you're at, and your body, which is how you interact with this world. And when you see the physiological changes, whether it's, I love how you said, a problem with my lady bits, or a problem with, heart palpitations, or sweating when you
Breathing.
shouldn't be, or breathing issues, or, pain in the neck. Whenever Meg does body entries on her neck, it's usually me. I'm a pain in the neck and I'm a
Yeah.
pain in the butt. The sacral usually comes up around me too. But those things that are happening to your physiology, whether it's pain, dysfunction, all of that, those are cues
Mm,
that your mind and your
right on.
body they're not congruent, and they're not in sync, right? So Justin Timberlake would be upset that you're not in sync. But that's when we know we've got to go and find or make changes to some of those things. And so that's why I know I really wanted to bring this idea of mind body
Mhm.
into it, and
Mm.
why I know Meg gets, she's vibrating at another level after this conversation,
Yep.
of where we're at. Any last words on the mind body thing, and truly what it means to you, or where to go with it?
I don't think so. I feel like we covered it all. I mean, I in any good conversation, I'm left with like tidbits for another conversation. So I definitely have some questions that I wrote down of like, oh, this would be a really interesting topic to explore in terms of like looking at the physiology and how it changes and how can we continue to enhance it and really, really continue to engage and spread the word about mind body because I do think that there's a lot of things that work, or as you said, tapping or breathing or movement. Those are all important things and tools that we can use. And people shouldn't feel like there's something wrong within them if they're using those tools and those tools like aren't working. Why do I still have XYZ?
Mhm.
Well, you're you're engaging, you're doing something, but you're not necessarily getting to the root or like pulling out that thorn with something that is super, super precise. So I think
Yep.
that's it.
No, I love that. I love that. And I kind of wrap all of that up because we love the conversations with you. So if you've got more questions and things that we can go
Mm.
into, I'm all about it. Let's jump on a call and make another topic, another conversation. But one of the biggest things that through, my journey and struggling with, depression and anxiety and feeling like I was alone, and if you're not dealing with the emotional piece, if you're not dealing with the physiology, if you're not dealing with the triggers, you're missing a huge component. And I know people like you think that emotions are messy, that they want to run from them. But the more work that you can do to acknowledge what it is that's going on, and that's where I really loved that precision. Like truly, it felt like a lightning bolt went through when you said that statement, that precision, getting to that place that I found NET to be the best way because it gets to the root of things that I could have never in a million years figured out that that's what it was, and allowed my body then to be more in balance and to stop ringing that Pavlovian bell. I feel like there's so much work that people could be doing and helping themselves in conjunction to the other things that they're doing. So I hope, to the people that are listening to this, that you look into more stuff and realize you're not alone, but there is precision that you can get to different areas of your life where you may feel like you can't get over this, you can't get through this. There's always, always, always something more that we can do. Keep the hope and keep looking for answers. Awesome.
Great.
All right. Well, I think that's it. I think we've got everything. We'll be doing more of these series. So Dr. Melissa Carrick, we were so thankful that you were our first one on this.
Thank you.
It's such a huge topic that we were so pumped to talk about. And we look forward to having more sessions in the future, bringing you more information and knowledge.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Everyone take care, and we'll see you on the next podcast.